Hello friends, and thank you for joining me in today's video. As promised, I am giving you the second one of the three in this series of paintings that I did, and I'm calling it a series because I am using the same materials again in this one. My main focus in this one was to figure out how are the colors drying, what's the granulation, what is the texture gonna be as I am working with these watercolors. And a lot of the texture obviously is coming from this very rough paper, and so that in itself is awesome. But I've also noticed with my initial one that especially that lunar violet color gives some really nice granulation, and so I figured I would go with super simple circles and just see what happens. And I'm also trying to lay the colors on pretty thick. Yes, I have a lot of water on my paper, but that is because this paper can take a lot of water. When I say it is a thick paper, I am not kidding. It does not feel like 140-pound paper. So I'm using a lot of water, but I'm also trying to really load up my brush with the watercolors to really see how much of that color does it take to give me a nice saturated piece at the end. So this paper, as I said, is super thick and it takes a lot of water, and this is why I decided to place each circle adjacent so that the color from the first one can bleed into the second one, and it becomes nicely apparent when I don't put any color on my brush but instead just use water and then see how that paint from the other circles bleed into it. And I just love watching the pigments move and the paints move into a new space and kind of release that color, and it's just fascinating to watch. I think this paper would lend itself really well to painting pebbles or rocks because of the beautiful texture it leaves behind. And I want to say thank you to all of your comments on last week's video. I got a lot of good ideas and a lot of insight. I was asking about who uses this rough paper, because to me, it does not feel good on my hands. I don't like touching it as much. So I was just curious, and a lot of you have come back and said that people use it for landscapes in particular, which I would have never thought of. So yeah, as I was painting these circles, they really reminded me of rocks, and I almost want to bring out my I have from the Kuretake Gansai Tambei, I have the slate color watercolors, and I feel like I want to use those for and make some rocks. So maybe I will do that next, for the next video. Not this coming next video because it will be the third one of this series, but maybe for next week I will work on some pebbles with this watercolor paper. I gotta use it up. I paid a lot of money for it, so I gotta use it up. So we'll see. Someone also suggested that I should take the paper off the block and use it separately. So maybe I will try that next time. As of now, it is still sitting on the block, and I haven't had much issue of the water content on the paper seeping through to the layers below. Honestly, watching the watercolor expand into the shape that you have created with the water is one of my favorite things when working with watercolors. And that's why I am taking my time here, and I'm really trying to play around and see how it dries, where it goes, and what it does when it blends together. I'm getting towards the end of creating this background, and we're switching over to the dried version, and just look how much duller these colors have dried. And I'm always so amazed how so much lighter the colors will dry, and it just goes to show that you don't have to buy expensive watercolors, because even the more expensive watercolors will dry much duller. I think I was a little bit shocked how much these colors are drying lighter, because I put quite a bit of color on that paper. So I don't know if I should have just gone in with another layer, but then again, I don't want to put more layers on top of what I've already created. So I don't know. If you're looking for brighter watercolors and you think that more expensive watercolors will do the trick, maybe you don't have to spend so much money. I don't know. I'm not discouraging you from buying more expensive watercolors. And I'm always saying that I am new to watercolors and painting, so that might just be a user error. So don't take my word as the gospel, because honestly, guys, I don't really know what I'm talking about. I am just voicing what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing. And that is not to say that I don't love the Daniel Smith watercolors. I actually love them a lot. They are very creamy, they're beautiful to work with. But it struck me as interesting that even these colors will dry rather dull. This was the first time that I have spent quite a bit of money on watercolors. So it's just all an experiment to me. I really like experimenting, and I like to see what comes out of my paintings, my style, and the materials that I use. I am starting to doodle on the paper, and yes, I know you've told me not to doodle on the paper, but that was before I read all of your comments. So here I am doodling my poor pens away on this surface, and yes, I'm still struggling with it, but I can't help it. So, and I wanted to, these circles give me a perfect opportunity to doodle. I also put the gold on top. I initially thought maybe I would put the gold and mix it in with the watercolors, but then I decided against it because I really wanted to see how those paints will dry on their own and without anything added to it. And because it's not the same brand that I used for the gold, I really didn't want to mix them together just yet. I might in the future, but for this one I didn't want to. So I just laid the gold on top and added a few more circles before I decided to doodle over it. So I just put some fun neural lines on the background, and now I have this gold pen that I like to use to make some more lines. Unfortunately, that gold did not match the gold that I used for the watercolor, and in the end it was fine, but as I was using it, it just didn't have that same hue, which kind of bothered me, but you know, it's fine. This white pen is the Uniball Signo brand, and again, this pen is very temperamental and there's a lot of buildup when you use it at the tip, so you constantly have to clean it off in order for it to work well. Generally, I like the pen, but it's temperamental and sometimes it just doesn't want to work so well. And working on this rough paper wasn't particularly welcoming for this pen either. But it's a practice piece, so I'm not really worried. Hey, what am I talking about? All of my pieces are practice pieces, and I'm never worried. But, you know, if you are trying to use this pen, I'm telling you, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it might be the paper underneath, it might be the watercolor, it might just be the pen itself. So if yours isn't working, you might have gotten a dud. Sometimes these pens, when you get them, they have been laying around for a long time and then they just the ink dries out. But you see me struggling with this pen on this paper, and that's why I wanted to point it out, because just because it's not working well here doesn't mean that it's not a good pen. Actually, that was quite amazing how it worked, so I don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm just doodling away, trying not to push too hard on this paper, because even though I'm using the cheaper brand pens, you know, I don't want to wreck them. I'm just having fun finding little spots to doodle on. Here comes my trusty dotting tool and my acrylic paint. I always like to leave a few spots available for my dots. I just love them so much. And luckily, this didn't give me too much trouble because it's not a pen and the acrylic paint doesn't really care what kind of background you have. It's very forgiving. Those little dots just brighten up a space so much, and I just love them. They're so cute. So I just place them in places where I think it needs a little something, or I like to use the lighter dots in the darker colors just to brighten them up a little bit. But I also like to use the darker color on the dark and just give it a little bit of mystery. Maybe something that you wouldn't see immediately, but you know, your eye makes a second glance. You're like, oh, there's something beneath that. We're nearing the end of this video, and I had a lot of fun creating this one. I learned a lot. I keep learning a lot about the paper itself, about the colors, about the brand, and I'm just enjoying getting to know these new materials. And I know I've been a little bit sad in my last video about it, but in all honesty, it's not something that, you know, gives me sleepless nights. I just like exploring. I just like experimenting and showing you all what I've come up with. And I'm so happy that you all enjoy my videos a lot, and I love all the feedback, even though I don't respond immediately and it sometimes takes me a few days to get back to you. Just know that I read all your comments and I take them to heart and I learn from it. And so I just wanted to thank you all for leaving kind comments and lots of ideas. And so this is just so much fun for me. So I will say goodbye, and I will see you probably Friday with the last one of the series here. And that one is going to be just a little bit different than this one because I added some different colors with it and just wanted to see how they incorporate with each other. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you liked this video, and I will see you next time.